Hello and welcome to What We Wrote. I am Emma.
And I'm Esme.
And we are two friends who've been writing together for decades. This is a special bonus episode of the podcast where we are beholden to no one. We will be talking about books in depth, our favourite or least favourite tropes, writing tips, or whatever the hell we want, really. And this week we have a very special guest joining us on the podcast. Tracy from FolioFox is here to talk to us about all things printing. We met Tracy originally at the book fair in Melbourne. Hello to all of those of you who we met there. It's also where we launched our debut novel, Revelation, which you should definitely buy.
More on that later.
More on that later. But we thought this would be a great opportunity to chat to Tracy and learn more about indie book printing. So welcome to the podcast, Tracy, and thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
You can tell it's an absolute honor.
Yes, we're very excited because, I think as we sort of mentioned, a lot of our listeners are much like us, new to the publishing journey. And so we recently published Revelation ourselves, and when it came to getting printing done, there's like just so many options, and we were just like, we just want a book. So
give us a book.
yeah. So give us some guidance. We'll be good, I think.
Book please.
Book please. Like one in my hands.
Here's a story. Make it book.
Yeah. So tell us a bit about yourself, Tracy, and about FolioFox.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, it's a very common experience what you guys had, so please don't feel like you are unique in like, oh my God, how do I not know how to do this? It's very common. So I'm glad that I could, be here to help. I hate to say the word educate because I'm not an educator. But
no, you can. If you know more about a subject than someone else, I think it's safe to say you can educate.
Yeah, we're all learning here.
We're a blank slate, so
exactly.
there's only way up from here.
I'll preface by saying I'm not a print expert, but I'm the brand manager at FolioFox. I sort of helped create it in a way. Because FolioFox is a commercial book printing company. So we produce books, we print and bind books in Melbourne. So we're right here in Australia, and it's all done locally, literally in like a couple of factories down on the southeast side of Melbourne. And we print and bind books of all kinds, not just your like fiction or non-fiction, but magazines, annual reports, journals, diaries, like notebooks, like basically anything you can think of that's in a book format, whether it's got like a staple or it's glued or so yeah, it's all about books.
That's what we love to hear.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that you kind of created or helped create FolioFox. So give us the origin story. How did that come about?
Yeah, drop the law.
Okay. Well, for most of my career, I've worked in marketing. And so marketing and branding has been sort of my bread and butter, alongside books being very much a hobby. When I was first starting out in my career on the side, I was like a bookstagrammer. I had my own book blog. So I was deep in like the super niche reader sort of community. And then a couple of years ago, I actually got the opportunity to work at a traditional publisher in marketing, which was crazy. And since like then, I sort of took a step back from books and the publishing industry. You could say maybe I was a little burnt, but I just stumbled upon this opportunity from a local printing business, and which became FolioFox. And FolioFox, essentially the business, they were not just a book printer, but they printed sort of everything, but on behalf of other printers. And majority of what they print would be books, because that's what we're really good at. But yeah, essentially they were printing for other printers, for other print brokers, as they call them. So you might have picked up a book that we've actually printed, even though on the inside it says someone else printed it. So there's things like that can happen in the industry. And so when I sort of stumbled upon this role, the business owners were like, so we've been doing this for a while, like, you know, a decade or so, and we want to just have our own company and not have to be the people in the middle anymore. We want to like have more agency to help and work directly with authors, with businesses, and essentially have a brand. And so I went, okay, that sounds cool. Let me waddle in and figure this out.
Nice.
And that's sort of what, like, that's how FolioFox came to be. So
Awesome.
I've been working here for literally just over a year. I think it was my 1 year anniversary a couple of weeks ago. And it's just been full on building the brand, building the website. And the best part has been the last probably like 4 to 6 months of getting to launch myself back into the community and being like, hey guys, who can we help? Because obviously they had absolutely no digital presence before. They had no business name, nothing. It was actually baffling to me that you could anything about them online. I'm like, how is this like a thriving business and nobody knows about them on the surface? So it's been nice to be able to shout out about who we are and also dive into some more opportunities to help authors understand a bit the process a bit more, because printing is definitely something that's been a little gatekept by traditional publishing for a long time. I wouldn't be surprised, like personally, I also thought of this myself before I really understood the entire process. In my mind, I was like, yeah, they send a manuscript to the publisher and then a book just comes out of the warehouse. Like,
yeah.
Is that not how it works?
Yeah, exactly. This is how we were expecting it to work, and then it didn't happen. So we're like, oh, we have to do this ourselves? The horror.
So yeah, it's that's sort of the lore, if you will, and we're still young. We're a baby, like we're 6-month-old brand as of like this month or whatnot. So we haven't been around for a long time as a brand, but we definitely know books very well. We've been doing it for a long time when it comes to that. So, and a lot of the customers that we have, if they're not small businesses, they're self-publishing authors, and so it only makes sense for us to want to help them even more with like whatever content or articles we write on the website, or getting to connect with self-publishing authors like you guys. And even if you don't print with us, like it doesn't matter, but at least we're uplifting the community in some way.
Yeah,
that's really awesome. Well, you've kind of answered our next question already, which was how did you come to work in printing, and are you an avid reader yourself? It sounds like you absolutely are. But is there anything else you want to say about your reading journey, or like why you wanted to end up in this kind of business?
I mean, I've always been a reader since I was very young, so definitely an avid reader, although avid is probably questionable right now because I'm in a book slump.
But happens to the best of us.
I know, we've all been there. I think that's just the plight of the reader, isn't it?
I'm a reader at heart. I walk past a bookstore and I really have to fight the urge to walk in. And I never really anticipated that I would be working on the printing side of the book publishing industry. Like, I know that being a reader, it's always a bit of a dream to get to work in publishing at all, regardless of like where you're at. But I kind of love that I've ended up on this side of the publishing process too, because I feel like it's a lot more wholesome, because regardless of anything else going on, we print, and there's nothing that gets super messy, but it also is such an important aspect that I think not many people really talk about. So I think it's an opportunity for me as well to help increase awareness about that kind of stuff. Yeah,
I love that. And I guess like touching base on sort of what you were sort of saying before about, you know, you being an independent printer. Because like I feel like when people are self-publishing, Ingram Spark is obviously like the biggest name out there, and that is what people think of first, I think, a lot of the time. But obviously they have a very different model. So what's the sort of like difference between like what you guys do and what a company like Ingram Spark would do, which
So Ingram Spark, they're a print-on-demand printer.
Yes.
And a lot of people might like think that what we do is print on demand, but it's actually not, because print on demand means like the second someone purchases a book online, they just print that one copy of that book and ship it out to them, which is why it's like it makes sense that it's such a popular and a widespread option for authors, because they don't have to worry about like having to cough up money up front to print, you know, X number of books. They can sort of wait until they get the orders for them. But with that obviously comes its own limitations. Like you can't really customize your book as much as you'd like, and you might not, you know, be able to make as much in terms of royalties depending on how expensive it is to print the books as well. But then there's also the advantages of the fact that you can, I mean, everybody knows this, right? You can order them wherever, they go worldwide. The shipping and the distribution is a huge plus. For us, we're sort of like not as much of a total endpoint for once your book is ready to print, but we're the guys in the process that can work with you to full on customize the book to however you want it and have a proper one-on-one relationship. Like you're not just working through an online portal, like you're literally emailing and talking to us over the phone. And although we don't just print one book, we still have quite low minimum quantities. Like thinking like a typical paperback, it'd be like 30 books, which is not a lot when you think about author events that you might want to go to, or even just a book launch. And it could end up being more cost effective than going through Ingram Spark to get that, depending on how you want it to look like. And the fact that you can have a lot of peace of mind that it's actually like done locally. So yeah, there's a few differences. And so we work with authors and publishers. And so there are small publishers that would come to us as well for their book releases and things. So I've totally lost my train of thought.
That's
we're just on for the ride.
Yeah, you're doing great.
yeah, that's fabulous.
But like, I guess the gist of it is Ingram Spark, they sort of just print one book at a time, whereas for us, we have like your traditional, we print sort of blocks of books at a time. So that's why we have print minimums. And that being said, it's not because we can't print a single book, but because our printing process involves multiple like human operators, like the entire process isn't totally automated by robots. You naturally need to print more than one copy just to make sure the book turns out okay.
Yeah.
And so it often ends up being that, oh, you'll get a quote for one book, but basically costs the same as if you ordered 20, because we would have to print 20 anyway, just throughout the entire process to be able to get it right and make sure it's like to the quality that you should have it at.
Yeah.
And you guys are offering, I guess, that kind of more personalized connection, I guess, so that it's, I mean, we certainly have had problems with uploading to Ingram Spark, and like the cover wasn't the exact right amount of pages, like, and you know,
and it's
like
all just
all
like
of that kind of
AI or something that checks it. So like it's just like, this is wrong, but there's like, it doesn't tell you why. So
you just get random error
like,
messages and you're like
you're like
yeah, for us it would definitely be like, if we get a file and it's not quite right, we'll email back and be like, hey, can you tweak this bit or tweak this bit. And sometimes we're not necessarily saying to edit something because you need to, but we actually, like, our account managers and our production team, they look through like majority of the book. So if there's anything that actually like stands out, like, oh, the image is a little too close to like the gutter or something, it's going to get cut off. Like they're not just going to print it and forget it. Like they'll actually go, hey, we noticed there's this here, you might want to maybe move it out, or oh, it looks like the font is too small or something like that. Sometimes you just need a human to be able to look at it and tell you, like, is it even going to look good when it goes to print?
Yeah.
Especially a human who knows what they're talking about, because, you know, it's all very well for us to sit and look through our typeset manuscript and be like, oh, yeah, that looks great. But we don't know what it's going to look like when it's printed out, because, you know, we've never done this before. So I can see how valuable it would be to have somebody who knows what they're talking about to be able to look through it and just say, oh, have you considered this? Or, you know.
And sometimes it's not even about like that part of the process either, because we often get authors to come to us that they haven't even edited their book, they haven't formatted it or anything, and they're just like, I know you guys print, but like, what do I do? And it's one of the best things I've really enjoyed doing in the last few months, is sort of like creating a network, like a little database of like, oh, this person likes to edit this, or this person's really good at designing a cover for this, and sort of being the middleman in this situation where you can direct them to the right experts to help them. And then when they're ready to print, like, we're always going to be here. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
That's awesome. Okay, so let's get into some of the like nitty gritty. As self-published authors ourselves, one of the things that we were completely overwhelmed by was paper choices, the different cover styles. So like there's weight, and then there's color, and there's matte, and there's gloss, and there's so many different choices. Can you talk a little bit about the different kinds of paper and like what you might get from sort of the different kinds? Like if you were looking for a certain type of feel or look, like what kind of paperweight would you want, and just some of those little differences about the actual interior of the book.
Yeah, sure. So I guess to start simple, there's two types of papers. There's uncoated and there's coated. And uncoated paper is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a plain paper that has absolutely no coating over the top. And that's the type of paper that is almost like parchment. It's what a lot of the inside of novels use, because it's the kind that if you ever use a pen, you can see the ink like just get absorbed by it, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's definitely standard for any sort of fiction or non-fiction novels you'd find in a bookstore that have uncoated paper on the inside. And so the standard as well is typically like a cream paper. You'll notice that. And there's a reason for this, actually, that cream paper is easier on the eyes if you're reading for a long time.
Okay, yeah.
I can see that. If it's like blinding white, it's a bit like...
Especially if you're reading in bright light as well. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's uncoated paper, and it's not just used for the insides. Like you can use it for the outside as well, and it ends up looking like, in some ways it can look a bit more premium. Sometimes it just has a different like feel, because it doesn't have a coating. It just feels like almost like parchment, like old school newspaper or something, you know. So some people really prefer that. Depends on the look that you're going for. And then there's coated paper, and there's heaps of different varieties of coated paper, but the two main ones are silk, also known as satin, and gloss. Gloss, I feel like, is pretty straightforward. It's glossy. It's really shiny.
Just like what you'd see in like textbooks and stuff like that, right? Where it's that kind of plasticky.
Yep. So the reason why they're used in textbooks or children's books very often is because if you drop something, you just wipe it off.
I was going to say, withstand all the coffee from the students studying at midnight.
The only downside to it is that because it's so glossy, it can be really hard to take photos of, really hard to read. If you're like really bright outside and you're trying to angle the book right, because you can't like quite read what it says, which is where like silk or satin kind of comes in, because it's sort of the in between, where it's not quite as glossy as gloss, but it's definitely a lot more dulled and muted, and it still has a slight shine to it, but it's not quite matte either.
And when would you be using like your silk sorts of papers?
Silk, to be honest, is probably like the most standard for any type of like book, like on a shelf like this.
Okay.
You're like any of these books, like over here, I've got like, actually, Sally Rooney is uncoated, which is interesting.
Okay.
But I've just got like, you know, Taylor Jenkins Reid, like that would be a silk.
Yeah.
But then also, it's probably a bit overwhelming, but you can have a silk cover, but a gloss laminate on top.
Okay.
Laminate is a really common finish. So it gets a little bit complicated, right? So that's why I guess it's helpful to have someone take you through this.
Who knows what they're talking about,
So you can have a silk book that has just a little bit of shine, not enough that it's distracting or hard to read. And it also just looks really luxurious, I find, compared to your gloss or your, depending on the book. Uncoated can look luxurious as well, but silk is a favorite of mine because it's just nice. It's in between. It just doesn't want to like stand out or be too far in the background. So that's probably the most common choice for covers. And then for the finish, you can go with, if you want to make it more matte, you can go for the matte laminate. And so that really removes any kind of like possible reflections or glare. There's like an anti-scuff version as well that's matte, and that's like great if you know your book's going to get a little beaten. Probably last a bit longer with anti-scuff. And the laminates also sort of help if you ever spill anything on it. It does kind of like what a gloss paper might do. And there's also, there's a gloss laminate, and more recently we just got into the warehouse a holographic laminate.
Ooh, holographic.
Yeah, it's really shiny, but like rainbow colors. And there's also a velvet laminate, which I see a lot of Ingram Spark books have, actually. I think, I don't know if it's their standard, but velvet's really interesting. It sort of feels like, I wouldn't say feels necessarily like velvet, but it's got an interesting texture where it almost feels like if you're putting your hand along the book, there's like, what's the word?
Like a grain.
There's friction.
Against the grain.
Yeah. I personally am not a huge fan of it because it kind of feels like I've got something sticky on my hands when I hold a velvet book.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not a fan of velvet in general.
But there's all sorts of different types of laminate, and they're the types of finishes that you have on top of covers. So that would be like the next step after you pick a paper. But I hope that sort of explains paper a little bit. But there's just a world of paper, and I guess when you work with a printer like us, there's just every option in the world you can really think of. And you could pick a different paper for like one page in the middle of the book or something if you wanted to, and things like that. So it helps.
Yeah, and like I think it's really good to be able to even just know like the basics, like the difference between like an uncoated and a silk and a gloss or whatever. Like, I think having them explained, like you can probably, anybody who's ever read a book, right, can probably imagine. I know I'm thinking of different books that I own that I'm like, oh yes, I think that one probably has like uncoated pages because like, and so then you can have kind of a bit of idea of like what you're looking at, right? And what you want. So I think it's really good to just be able to like lay out like that there's just these kind of different types and And
what's interesting is that there's different printing processes too. So we had this recently with a customer that we're working with that is they have a literary magazine. You might have heard of them. They're called Fabled, and we've been working with them recently for the next issue, which is super exciting. And they wanted an uncoated cover, but uncoated is if you're using an inkjet printing method. So there's two different printing methods. I'll start with that. There's inkjet and there's toner. So the two most common methods. You've probably heard inkjet because that's like your typical home office printer. It's like you've got liquid ink and it just goes into the page and the page sort of absorbs it. And that's why some people actually stray away from uncoated for a book cover because it might just not be as colorful because it absorbs some of the color, and the color might mute a little bit or look a little duller or fade. And that might just not be what you're looking for. And some people love that. But if you print with an uncoated with a laser printer, it's interesting that laser works differently, that it's like a hot sort of powder that sits on top of the paper. And so it almost ends up looking like it's silk after you use uncoated with a toner printer. And so it was a really interesting experience when we were printing a proof, which is like a test cover for Fabled. And they were like, oh, the colors are they're so muted. I was so confused. Like, how is it so different to the other one? And we were like, They printed
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah, well, I suppose that's definitely something that you got to consider.
yeah.
Well, it's really interesting too, because like a lot of like on Book Talk, there's a lot of the times people will get a proof from say Ingram and a proof from Amazon, and like the way that the colors on the cover come out is often something that they compare between the two. You know, this one looks a bit brighter, or this one has a bit more depth, or whatever. And so, like, I guess that's probably something to do with that as well, is the way, the actual way that's printed, or the type of paper that's printed on, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, and I guess something that most people don't know is that the commercial printers that we work with, they're not like your typical home office printer. We can actually control how much of like certain colors are going through, which is why we sometimes do multiple test prints, because we might do the test print for a cover and we go, oh, there's a lot of magenta in there, like we need to dial it back a bit. And you have to literally like customize the printer for that job to make sure that it comes out as close to what it should look like. And then it's especially important if an author who's already self-published their book before and they're like, I love the cover, I wanted to keep it that way, but our printer's got a little bit less of this, a little bit more of that. We have to try and like color match it exactly.
Okay. Is that because I've seen a lot as well on like not TikTok so much, but like Facebook groups for self-publishing help kind of groups. And a lot of them have troubles with their covers. And I commonly see questions around whether it was formatted like RGB, red, green, blue, or CMYK. So does that also play into it?
Oh, 100%. So
yeah.
RGB is red, green, blue, and that is how screens show you color. But printers, they use CMYK, which is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, which is K for some reason.
Sure.
Why not?
CMYB
is too easy.
Like.
I guess so.
So when you've got like a cover, the reason why like a lot of the time it'll look different when you print it, it's probably because when you send a file to a printer that's not in CMYK, the printing machine is just going to try and find the closest thing to the RGB color, and it might not be the exact same thing. You're sort of just leaving it to the universe a little bit if you do that.
Hopes and prayers. Yeah.
Really hope it comes out, guys. It's kind of the same if you only have like a hex color, like the hashtag with like 6 numbers.
Yeah.
And so when you convert that to CMYK in your digital screen, even on your screen, you'll notice it looks a little bit weirder, but like it would look more true to what you want it to be than what it was if you just sent it in with RGB. And it's especially important if you're sending in photos or images. Not to say that, if you send a photo of someone in a red dress, it'll turn out blue, but it might just look a bit more pink than red or something like that.
Yeah, it's really important, really good tip, I guess, is to make sure that your covers are in the correct format so that the colors actually come out right.
There's a lot involved in getting your file ready for print. I spent, I would say, like a solid couple of weeks putting together a really thorough guide on our website because there's just so many aspects to it. And if you're not a professional designer that's done print before, it's really overwhelming. Like I was overwhelmed, and I've done this before. Just like even like thinking about all the different steps, and when you break it down, there's a lot of things that people don't talk about a whole lot, like crop marks and bleed. And bleed especially is a huge one because some printers will ask for a different amount of bleed compared to others. And if there isn't enough bleed, sometimes they literally just blow up the image a little bit. So that's where you might notice, because usually like bleed is like the what's the word for it? It's like a safe area to make sure that when it gets printed a little over the size that you want it to, so that when you trim it at the end, you don't have any like
white lines or black marks. Yeah.
or anything like that. Yeah. And so if there isn't quite enough bleed, sometimes printers, not us, I hope, will like increase the scale a little smidge and make it a little bit bigger so that they have enough bleed for when they trim. And that's when you sometimes notice that the books, like the words just look so big on the front.
Yeah.
Because they're not quite to scale to what you might have wanted it to be. So yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, so I guess speaking of trimming, what should people consider when they're thinking about the size of their book? So whether to pick the 6x9 or the 5x8, or are there certain considerations that you would encourage people to think about when they are sort of trying to pick what format to have their book in?
Unfortunately, I'm really bad at like inches. Like I'm very much so when you said 6x9, I was like, meow. Like,
I couldn't tell you what that is in centimeters.
No, it's that I know that one because it's the size we got ours in. That's the only
one
way
we ended up going with. So it's like this size.
like a trade paperback size.
The slightly bigger size. Yeah.
Yeah. So like for me, that would be like a C format.
Well done.
She's right.
I won't be calling your book the C word, I promise.
They're good. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Scared the crap out of my dog, but that's okay. She's vacated the room now.
Somehow mine is like dead asleep.
I know. I keep getting distracted by watching him. Anyway, wait.
Yes, trade paperback, right. That's like, for me in my head, that would be a C format, which is like around 153 by 234 mil, because millimeters is don't do it, guys, really don't do it. Millimeters is like the printer speak of how we typically print and bind books in Australia. I'm sure in America it's a different story. It's probably why inches is like the main one for a lot of the print on demand online companies.
Yes.
And to be honest, there's quite a few like common sizes, and unfortunately they vary so often. Like I know as a reader myself, I used to get really frustrated because I would order a book and it would come and the next sequel one is in a different size.
It's the worst.
I hate it so much.
So bad.
One of my favorite books, I got like the sequel in hardcover, and it was, I think, the US hardcover instead of UK hardcover, and I have to have them on different rows of my shelves because they just don't match, and I'm embarrassed.
It's terrible. I'm waiting for I read the Thursday Murder Club books, and the 5th one has been out for ages, but I can't buy it because it's still in like the taller trade size, but I've got all of the slightly smaller size, so it's so frustrating.
It's interesting how that works.
Ben Aronovich shelf is a nightmare to me.
Mayhem.
Because
same.
it is absolute mayhem. I have some of them in the smaller format. I have some of them in the bigger format. And I'm like, I just want to put you all in the bin and start again because like this makes me crazy.
I know. And then there's like the Diana Gabaldon ones because she has the 2 smaller ones, but then she also has like the bigger one, which is like A4 size. So they're just all sorts of mayhem.
Horrific.
Yeah. I don't quite know why it's always been like this, but the trade paperback is like, it doesn't usually get printed for very long. It's like when it's first being released out, and then if you wait for maybe like a year or so, the mass paperback will come out and it'll be a lot smaller. And I know for some books that I've started reading a series of, like I've gotten the trade paperbacks, but then I've missed out on one and I've just gone, I'm just getting the Kindle version. I can't.
Yeah.
So yeah, size is really important, I guess, in that way. And if I personally, as a reader, I would recommend you just stick to the one size.
Yes, we fully intend on doing that.
Yeah, I just want to say that for all of our readers, all of our listeners who want to buy our books, we swear to God, they are all going to be the same size.
Which is why, like, we ended up deciding to go the slightly bigger trade because even though it made Revelation look a little bit like narrow, short, or whatever.
Slimmer.
Yeah, slimmer. Yeah, the next book is like significantly bigger, and so if we had that in the smaller size, it would be really
big,
chunky. So we were like, we'll just get this one in the taller one, and then that way the next ones will be okay. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Not look like a Brandon Sanderson novel.
Yeah. Make us look
Bible
good.
pages, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely say that size is like important, but also kind of not, in that you can really just pick whatever size you want, because there are so many other sizes out there. But if you're looking for like, you know, your standard, like I don't want to like be too tall or too small, the size that most like novels go for is called demi, and I've got like, it depends as well. Some printers, some publishers have demi slightly taller or slightly wider, but off of the ones that I looked at when I researched through the common sizes, it's like 138 by 216 millimeters, and it ends up being, I would say, kind of like these sort of size novels, like the kind where you'd find your typical fiction novel that came out of Big W or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're popular because they're not quite as big as your trade paperback, but then they're also not quite as small as your B format, which is like a mass paperback, like the Brandon Sandersons that are a little bit smaller. The main thing with size is really just portability, and like where do you want your readers to be reading it, and what's the purpose of the book. Obviously, when we get customers that want to print like an annual report or a magazine, we tend to go for like the standard A sizes, like an A4 or something, because you want like lots of space to be able to put tables and content and images and stuff. But for novels, which I assume most of your listeners are writing, you'd want to think about like, does it fit in a handbag?
Yes, well, that's very true, because I'm reading Quicksilver at the moment, and that thing is massive.
It's huge.
And I got the big, I swear it's like practically A4 size. And so I've just been like shoving it in my bag because it's so big. And normally I'm like really pedantic about my books, but this thing is just like a brick. So I've just like, I've accepted that I'm trashing it.
I read the hardcover, and it's even worse. I can't even bend it. It has to go in.
Yeah, this is why hardcover is also a really tough one, because like it's going to be hard to bring around regardless. That's why paperbacks are so common for most books. And I guess the other thing is that hardcover is a lot more expensive, not just to buy, but to produce. Like that's why they're a lot rarer here. There's actually many publishing companies that they don't do their hardcovers here. They literally like they print them in the UK and then just ship them here because it's cheaper that way. Yeah, because I think, I'm not sure exactly why, but the processes and the costs of doing it in Australia is more expensive, and a lot of them will go offshore to get it done, whether that's in China or like in the UK, where I have no doubt that their printing industry is probably like double the size of ours, because that's where books came from.
Yeah, true. They've been doing it for a while.
Yeah. We definitely do hardcovers for authors as well, but it doesn't happen as often because like it is just more expensive. It's more of an investment, because it's not as simple as print the pages and glue them together. It's you either do that same process and have to add like the hardcover, or you get them like sewn section by section, come together, and all of the extra materials and the extra time taken to do it, it can be very expensive. So I'm not surprised that hardcovers are not the first choice for most self-published authors.
Yeah, I feel like we've been sort of, I mean, I think hardcovers is one of those ones like they look nicer on the shelf, which is why I guess you see them a lot more in like your special editions.
Yeah.
And so on that note, like it's every indie author's dream, I think, to get to the stage where they can have a special edition of their book. So if, you know, an author was wanting to do something like that and like splash out and make something a little bit more special, what sort of stuff can FolioFox do to make it stand out and make it look a little different.
I do love a foil. A foil is
Yeah.
it just adds in a little extra bling, or it just looks like really luxurious. So we definitely do foil. We do like embossing, debossing. I always forget which way is which, but one of them is like the letters look indented and the other letters pop out.
Yeah.
Obviously, lamination is another common finish. There's also spot UV, which is quite common actually, but you wouldn't really notice it unless you knew what it was. Like, I think that
I don't know what that is.
Like this is a good example actually, because do you see how only the letters are shiny?
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah. So that's a spot UV. So they add a little coating over just those letters. So they're the ones that like shine and stick out, but the rest is still like matte.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
And there's also like die cutting, which is when you cut out shapes of the paper. So you might see them sometimes where there's like a double cover, where the front cover has like a shape cut out so that the page behind something else that comes through. So that's also an option. You can have like flaps, so like the inside of the book, like a little flap can come out, even for paperbacks. But probably the most exciting thing for me is that in the next 6-ish months, we're going to be getting a sprayed edge printer.
Oh, I was going to say, was that on the cards? Because sprayed edges are like all the rage right now.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
I have been begging production. Not because I want some, but please, we need it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's valid.
We need to have it.
I think it's valid because I really do think sprayed edges has become a really big thing. Like people are buying books deliberately to face them sprayed edge out now.
Yeah. Which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, every bookstore that I walk in, and literally the first thing I see is a special edition or just like a normal edition with a sprayed edge. Like, okay, like brag. So it's definitely something we're looking into. It's just been really it's a hard thing for us because we're not just buying the only one we can find off of AliExpress for business. So literally like next month, I say next month, next week, or in the next couple of weeks, because next week is April, one of the business owners is flying to China to look at the machines to bring back, because that's where they manufacture all the machines that do it. And he's going there to see it in person because he wants to know that it's going to be the right machine. It's going to do what we need it to, and that it's going to actually produce like high quality books. So please wait patiently. It's 100% something I'm really excited about. Like, and not only that, but there's obviously like edges of books that get sprayed. You can have designs with just plain colors, but then there's also gilding, which is where you foil the edges.
Yeah.
So he's looking too. So I'm
exciting things to come then.
Yeah, watch this space.
It's what gets me up every morning, like, you know, one day closer to a sprayed edge book.
I love that. Well, I've set like a benchmark in my head that if we sell so many copies of Revelation, then we get to have a special edition. We get to have a special edition. So once we hit that, we'll let you know. We'll touch base.
Yeah. It'll be after you've got your sprayed edge.
Yeah, you'll have your sprayed edges by then.
Hopefully not, guys. You never know.
I know, it might sell out next week. You never know.
Yeah, come on, guys. Buy more books.
You might get tomorrow. You never know. I love seeing like the popularity of sprayed edges. It really just shows how like books aren't just for reading anymore. Book collection is its own hobby.
Yes, it really is.
And I think we've almost cycled back, because like when you think about the early days of books, they were like a luxury, right? It was something to show that you were wealthy and that you know, if you had a beautiful library full of books, because everybody had to make them by hand, you know, it was like it's sort of a sign of sort of wealth and luxury. And we've kind of almost come back to that, where it's like, well, let me show off my beautiful collection of luxurious hardcovers that I can't read because they're the size of a house.
Can't touch them, yeah.
They're beautiful.
Need your kid gloves to touch them.
Yeah, to touch them.
Oh my God, I've had to tell my husband to keep putting the blinds down because the spines are being bleached, guys. The sunlight is bleaching my spines. Don't do it. They're my hardcovers.
Horror. Yeah. Valid.
I think the best part as well about us being able to do this soon is that it's so inaccessible. I think there's only one printer in Australia that does sprayed edges for local businesses and publishers and authors. Everybody else would have to fork out thousands to get it done overseas and then brought here. So for indie authors to have an option where they can work with someone locally and have a bit of I'm not going to say competition, because I think it would be really hard for that one business doing it, the amount of interest that they would be getting, also to alleviate some of that supply demand difference.
It's always good to have more options.
Yeah
100%.
So, and self-publishing I think is becoming it's more, as you say, more and more accessible. More and more people are doing it, so the market I feel like is only going to grow from here as well.
Oh, that said, I learned something recently. That you can have a sprayed looking edge by printing it directly.
We heard that from Ingram.
Yes,
as well.
Actually.
And I was like, look at you guys.
I looked into it, so it probably wouldn't look as nice as your actual sprayed edges, because essentially what they do is they print a border and then they trim it. So it's really muted and dull, sort of it's there technically, but it's not really a sprayed.
It's certainly far from
the cheap version.
Yeah, TV version. Yeah.
TV sprayed edges.
It's certainly far from the special Twilight edition that I saw that has 3 different images. So if you have it, you see it, and if you do it that way, there's on the edge is Edward, and the other way is Bella or something. I think I saw that on a TikTok, and I was like, guys,
that's insane.
Yeah, that's getting real fancy.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have budget for that, but we'll try.
We'll start somewhere, right? Okay, so one of the other things that is really big on TikTok is the way that the book flops, if you know what I mean.
I have an example.
Yes, okay, flop book.
So I bought this. It's a pretty cheap book, I think, but the second I picked it up, I loved it because it has that nice flop. Has
the flop. So it's one of those things the covers, right, that people compare between, their Ingram prints or their Amazon prints or whatever, is how good the flop is. So if somebody was really invested in having a floppy book versus a stiff book, what kind of things would they be looking at? Is it a paper weight thing? Is it a binding thing? What gives you that cool floppy feel?
You sort of have it right. It's the paper. And I would say maybe 5% the binding. The majority of it is the paper. If the paper and the thickness of the book, so which can also go into size, if you guys were talking about. Because if you think about it, with the paperback, the only thing sort of keeping the pages together is glue. And so if the paper is thicker, it tends to be heavier. And the heavier the paper is, the more it'll sort of stay rigid when it's glued to the spine. So if you've got a thicker paper and it's heavier, it's not going to flop as much as if you have a lighter paper. And that's where your paper choice can be really important. And I know for us, we have a creamy book paper, which is it's called book paper for a reason, because even though it's thick, it feels like good paper, it's not going to tear the second you touch it. It's really light. And that's a really interesting aspect of different types of papers that you'll find, because you'll find that some papers, they weigh when I say weigh, I mean like in GSM, which we usually talk, they might be like a 200 GSM paper, but they might be thicker or thinner because the weight and the thickness is actually different.
Oh,
Ah.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's how you can sort of determine the quality. So if you're really invested in like a floppy paperback, I would opt for a book paper and look at how many pages, like how thick is your book going to be to get the flop. Because I think the slimmer it is, the less likely you are to get a satisfying flop.
Yeah.
And I think I also noticed that sometimes with the cover paper, if the cover paper is a little too thick, it might hold the pages too much.
Yeah, I will say this cover is very like, there's not much to it.
Yeah.
And it's like it's flaking off in places, so like it's probably not a very good cover because it's falling to pieces. But it does have a really nice flop, so you've got to give it marks for that.
You win some, you lose some.
Like growing up, I was so scared of like breaking spines that when you had a book with a really stiff spine, you're reading it like this to make sure you don't break it.
Exactly. Well, yes, I do that. Emma is a heathen and just cracks her spine.
I don't do it on purpose. Okay, you always say it like I sit there going crack, crack. I don't. I just read it normally.
I don't. We don't judge.
I judge.
She judges.
But that is a good point because, like, for example, this one, and I don't know whether it is because it's floppy, but like it can sit quite open and not crack the spine, and yet some books are like thinner than this, but you can't do that, and it ends up cracking the spine. So
that's
is
I think 5% smidge of binding.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So
I will say I do love a book that will sit open like that so that I can eat it. I can just eat my lunch while I'm reading it.
Just flick,
so in perfect binding, which is what makes like your typical paperback, there's actually 2 types of glues that are used. So there's your traditional like hot melt type glue, like EVA glue or whatever. And then there's PUR glue. And so we use PUR, and it's essentially PUR. It's I would say newer, but it's been around for a long time. But it's a newer glue that isn't heated as hot as a hot melt glue. And it means that it technically takes like a little bit longer to bind because you've got to wait a little bit longer for the glue to set, because it's not as hot. It won't, drop in temperature as much as if you used a super hot glue. But the best part about PUR glue, which is pretty sure polyurethane glue, is that it's just more durable over time. And because it's really durable at the spine, it's not necessarily going to crack as much at the spine too. It has a lot more flexibility. And I think the process itself is also a little bit more sustainable, which I like, because you're not using as much energy to heat up glue to like a really hot temperature. You're not using as much glue as well, because you actually don't need as much glue as you would with the traditional method. So some printers have probably used a hot melt glue in one situation, which is why it's just so easy to crack it and it feels like there's actually glue there. Whereas PUR glue, it's almost seamless.
Okay. That's really cool.
Would that result in like less of that? Because I know it doesn't happen quite so much, I don't think, which is why I'm wondering if maybe it's the newer glue. But with older books, sometimes big chunks of them will just come out.
Yeah, a lot of my Diana Gabaldon books are like that. Yeah.
Yes, especially with quite big books, and you just get like a section that just kind of comes out of the book.
Sometimes it's literally just one page, and you're like,
yes,
well, yeah.
Yes, that would be why for sure.
Yeah,
cool. Where are we up to? Oh yes, okay, cool.
We've jumped around a little bit.
Yeah, we have a little bit, but that's fine. We're getting there. So you've already mentioned that you work quite a lot with like independent sort of published authors, and you kind of like that. What is it like for you, like being able to work with indie authors such as ourselves? And like, because especially as you said, you worked in like traditional sort of publishing. Like, what's the difference like?
Well, essentially, like, as part of my role, I don't always work directly with the authors, but it is nice getting to work more often, or at least to meet more often with the authors. But we have like a team of account managers essentially, so you always have a dedicated person to talk to, and they're the ones sort of guide you through the process, and they're the one emailing you back and forth telling you what's going on. So I do that a little bit in when I'm trying to collaborate with like authors or organizers of like festivals. Like we're working with Sorrento Writers Festival right now, which is super exciting. So I'm sort of the account manager in that situation, or with Fabled Magazine. So it depends on the situation, and also like how like those businesses or organizers or authors came about. But I think for me personally, it's great getting to work with indie authors because there's just so much passion, there's so much energy, and there's just something so authentic about getting to speak to the person that created this thing and spent so long writing the story. And I think the best part about creating and working at FolioFox has been that I've sort of used this as a brand and almost platform to do a little bit more good, because when I was in traditional publishing, I was in a marketing department, and I did get to speak to authors sometimes, but you were more on the publishing side than the author side. And if anything, a lot of what might happen, which was standard and is still standard, was actually quite sad, because I got to see, you know, authors who would get a book deal, which is such a great milestone, and then you get to that meeting that happens once a month where they're like, all right, how much budget do we put behind marketing this author in 6 months time when the book releases? And unless you've got a big name behind you, or you know, everybody in the UK saying this is going to be great. And I was there when they were speaking about Fourth Wing.
Oh wow.
So there's like, when they knew it was going to be huge, and they're like, all right, we put money behind this one. But if you're a small indie debut author and they don't really see that you might have potential, we don't, like, the marketing team doesn't get any budget. And it's a real shame, because, you know, these are the people like yourselves who have spent like so much of your life creating this thing. And I remember feeling so dejected, like, oh, what do you mean? Like, I have nothing to work with, and trying to find creative ways to promote their book without spending any money, because it's already hard enough as it is.
Yes, you don't need to tell us.
Agreed.
You should do the choir.
I haven't even written the book, but I know, like, just from my marketing experience, like how hard it is just to be seen by other people. So I know that, like, I can't fund other authors in my current role, but I can at least do my best to promote them a little bit through the business and to work directly with them to help shape the book that they sort of dream of. Yeah.
Well, I saw I was perusing your website earlier, and it looks like you guys offer something called pre-press support or something. What's that about?
Pre-press support it's sort of like, it's not really a service we charge, it's just what we do. And it's having that one-on-one support with your account manager for them to look over your files, to have production actually check what's going on there. And if there is something that doesn't quite go right, or, you know, you need a designer to help you edit something, that's where we tap into that network of people that we have and go, hey, why don't you reach out to this person? And they're really like knowledgeable and can help you edit or design or refine this. Because I know that, like, it's difficult to get your book print ready if you've never touched an Adobe software before, or you don't even know like what you want the cover to look like, or you have it ready but someone else might not have done the greatest job and you need it fixed. So that pre-press support is really just the support that you get throughout the process before it actually goes to print.
Yeah, that's really cool, because I think, like, when we were stumbling our way through getting Revelation published and ready, it was a lot, like, we wasted so much time just like researching different people for different jobs, and it's really hard cold calling people and, like, you know, just picking someone off a website, because you're like, you know nothing about them and you don't know anything about the industry, so you can't even tell if what they're saying is, you know,
is legit
good
or fair, or
so that is really tricky.
Yeah, and there's so many people out there that, in my mind, I feel like because of how big the industry is across like all the different things that you need in publishing, you might, like, if you think about it, you might as well be picking up like the best one on a Fiverr. Like that's how it feels.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
right? You're just hoping that like this 5-star review is actually real, and like, oh, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and like, you know, some of them you're laying out like a decent chunk of money for it as well. And if, you know, you're indie published, you're self-funded, it's not like you can just willy-nilly dish it out, and if it goes wrong, oh well.
It's such an investment, and it's a real shame seeing things like how Writers Victoria like lost their funding because the industry is already like just barely holding on because it's not a lucrative business, right?
No.
Like people don't read like they used to, and even back then they didn't spend that much for books. So yeah, I totally understand that it's a tough market out there, and I guess from my perspective, the best that we can do, even as a small business, is to just uplift everyone else and help them along their journey. Because what's the point in bringing anyone down?
Yeah,
that's awesome. Okay, so I guess coming off that and kind of our sort of final question to sort of wrap up here today, if you had one piece of advice that you'd give to an indie author who is about to get ready to start printing their first book, what would that advice be?
Okay, so if they have written their book and it's ready to go, but it hasn't got a cover or anything like that, I recommend reading about the process of publishing a little bit more and sort of familiarizing yourself with all the different steps, because unfortunately it's not just finish writing the book then print. There's quite a few steps in between.
And bumbling our way through.
Yeah, and part of my role, a chunk of what I end up doing is with someone else in the team is writing articles with how-tos on our website. So we have like a little knowledge hub, and like multiple articles come out every month with different tips and helpful things, like how to set up a file like this, or what's the difference between book publishing and book printing, because some people might not understand the difference, and little things that might end up help them not just when they're preparing to go to print, but also afterwards, because distribution is probably the biggest limitation to working with an independent printer like us, because we know that we just print the books and then we give them to you, but like, how do you get them out to people? Like that's an obstacle in itself, and I wish I could help you guys with that, but I know some people. That's where we're at. In terms of if you're like super ready to go, like you've got your covers, they're like ready to print, definitely reach out to printers like us to get a quote. I'm not saying you must choose us, like genuinely, like price check, not price match, but like check prices, get quotes from multiple different printers, and just assess like not just how much the entire order is, but how much you're paying per book, so that you know, like per unit, like how much you're making, which will then sort of help you figure out how much do I price it, right? So that's a really big one. And you will notice that if you request a quote for like 300 books versus 100 books, it's gonna get cheaper per book the higher you go. Unfortunately, that's just how it works, because it's a lot easier for us to like print a bunch. So in terms of like figuring out how many books to start printing at first as well, honestly, if I was an indie author, I would sit at like 80 to 100. If you're doing a book launch, you're giving it to people. If you're going to events or markets or festivals, I would say if no one's ever heard of you before, I would have at least 20 books with me, because you never know how many people will go, and pick up a copy.
Yeah, we keep running out.
We keep running out because we're like, oh, it'll slow down. We'll just grab another. We'll just grab another little crate, and then this is all I've got left. So, and the few on the floor. Still go to friends and family. They
always want one. They're like, can I just have one copy? just fun. Yeah. I guess that was like a couple of tips, but like probably my last one would be to just leverage your community, leverage your platforms. And I love seeing it when authors are like, pre-order a book, like join a Kickstarter or do a Kickstarter, but like having just the pre-ordering function on your website, or even just on, a random Google form, is enough for you to be able to gauge interest. And if they can pay for the book beforehand and pre-order it, like that's how you can start funding the print run. Because realistically, like when we get a book order for like 50 to 100 books, our turnaround is like 7 to 10 days. So it doesn't take a long time when you work with a local printer to get all of your copies done. So you might have your book on pre-order for like 3 months, and then you've got enough to order 100 books, even though only 50 books ordered were pre-ordered. So I think leveraging and just pushing your story and your idea out there and getting people invested is probably the best thing that you can do as well.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I liked that. Cool. I think, is that everything?
Yeah, that was all of them.
I didn't want to click my mouse because it would make noise. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Alrighty, cool. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for coming and having a chat to us. It was super interesting to hear all about it because, this, as you have said a few times, no one knows about the ins and outs of this. Like, even like I tried researching like questions for this, and there's just this. People don't even know what to ask because there's so little known about it. So it was really good to have you on and just talk a little bit.
We did actually publish an article recently called 5 Questions You Should Ask Your Book Printer.
Oh, did I ask any of them? Hang on, let me find it.
It's fine. If it's up there, they can read it themselves.
They can go and read it. So if we left anything out, check it out. So, well, on that note, so whereabouts can people like find out about you, get in contact with you or FolioFox and whatnot?
Sort of like the center of all the information, our knowledge hub, what we do is on our website. So it's foliofox.com.au. Otherwise, you can always send us a DM on Instagram, which we're at FolioFox Australia, on Instagram and Facebook. That said, it might hit my message requests, so I might just not see it for a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of them do.
It's been happening a lot lately, and I feel really bad because I'm like, it's supposed to be the fastest way to get in touch with us. That said, like the best way really to get in touch would be on the website. Just pop in a contact form inquiry or request a quote if you already know like what papers and things you want to do and you just want to get started. Like, let's go, So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And so if you want to get in contact with us, what we wrote. So we are also on all the social medias. So we are on Facebook, Insta, TikTok, YouTube, and Tumblr.
Yep.
It is, isn't it? Yep.
You got them all this time.
I got them all. I barely paused until the end. And we are on the same handle at What We Wrote Podcast on all of them. Or you can also email us, which is just whatwewrotepod@gmail.com. And
buy our book.
And buy our book, yes, which I just
most importantly, the book that just keeps chucking on the floor.
I'm going to do that right, I promise.
Okay, please do. Hopefully you like it.
I like totally forgot.
That's
my bad.
So you guys should buy Revelation and read Revelation. It is a urban fantasy. It is perfect for if you love like the Mortal Instruments, or if you're into Supernatural or Constantine or anything along those lines. You will love Revelation. It's a little bit older, a little bit grittier. It's a little bit less sexist than Supernatural. Love that for us.
No queer baiting.
No queer baiting.
Yeah.
The queer is real.
Yeah. If you think they're queer, they probably are.
They probably are, yeah.
Yeah.
So you should definitely do that. You can buy it pretty much from the usual channels, KDP, Amazon. The best place to get a physical copy if you want to buy one is from our website. which you can either go to the podcast website or the author website. They all go to the same place. You can buy it direct from us there. We also are currently stocked in a few actual bookshops, which is so exciting for us. So you can get a copy of Revelation on the shelf from Unwritten Blends and Forever in Fiction, as well as some local stores in the Blue Mountains area.
Blue Mountains, yeah. There will be a continuous sort of updating list on our website. So if you want to sort of check and see if there's any bookstores near you, check it out on our website and it will list where you can find us.
Yes. So go do that because, as we've discussed many times through the podcast today, it's really hard to market books. So
it is.
Do us a solid and go and buy it.
And if you buy enough, you'll get a special edition. Well,
yes,
you'll get to buy a special edition. You won't get one. You'll have to buy it too, but it'll be existing.
We will make a special edition.
We will make
if you want a special edition, you have to buy the paperback first.
Sorry, them's the rubs.
Yeah, you're going to fund it.
Yeah. Pretty much. Cool. Well, I think that's everything. Thanks again, Tracy, for coming and having a chat to us today. It's been awesome.
Yep.
Hopefully we'll see you. Yeah. Hopefully we'll see you at some other events. Maybe we'll cross paths again.
I've definitely got a few cooking, so
excellent. Watch this space.
Watch this space.
Yes.
Awesome. Very good. All right.
Okay, we'll see you guys next time.
All righty. Bye.